Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar today. We're excited to have Aaron from Jet Global, and he's going to be presenting on improving capital management and cash flow with Jet reports and analytics. And I know you're all eager to get started with this presentation. So before I pass it over to Aaron, as a reminder, we are recording this webinar and we will post it to our on-demand webinar library for you to review again or share with anyone. And if you do have any questions during our presentation, please feel free to type them into the questions box and we will get them answered during our Q&A time at the end of our session. So now I'm going to pass it on over to Aaron to kick off our presentation.
Thanks, Angie, and really thanks for the whole team at Innovia for having me here today. Looking forward to dive in and kind of answer these questions. Capital management and working with cash flows has been a pretty big point of interest the last year or so with Jet, and so looking forward to kind of highlight that in a little more detail and do so using our Jet solutions here today. Jumping through, we'll quickly introduce who we are for those who may not be as familiar with Jet or the broader Insight software company. We'll give a quick introduction there. And really again to kind of why are users investing in Jet products. We'll look at a couple different reasons, and again we're really going to highlight focusing on how we can use this solution to better improve working capital and cash flow management. And so we're going to kind of approach that from two different angles here. First, looking at Jet reports, giving you live data directly out of your ERP, and how some of our pre-built templates are really already geared to answer a lot of the important questions we're going to be posing here today. And then for those of you who maybe they have more complex data spread out across more systems, or you have important KPIs and metrics that you really need to be tracking, we'll look at how Jet Analytics can help better enable that. But the whole idea is essentially looking at what kind of questions should we be thinking about regarding working capital and cash flow management, and how can we use these solutions to better answer those. My name's Aaron Strawn. I'm a senior channel manager here at the Jet team at Insight Software. I've been with Jet for a little over 4 years, had the pleasure of working with existing customers as well as new customers joining the Jet family. I really enjoy working in this space. It's a great product, great to get to know all these different customers and find out how they can better utilize their data that they already have in their dynamic system and use it to drive better decisions for their organizations. And so for those of you who Jet may sound familiar, but maybe Insight Software does not, Insight Software is the broader organization, and it really has the focus of serving the office of the CFO, making sure that those users are able to connect to and make sense of their enterprise data, and do so in real time, so you can really proactively drive greater financial intelligence across the whole organization. And as you all know, the role of the CFO and your team, it's evolved rapidly. Modern leaders have to do a lot more than just the traditional tasks. You're involved with safeguarding against risk, potentially leading remote workforces, and people are expected to have the information to make strategic business decisions faster than ever. And so it's important you have the right tools for that job. A lot of organizations are stuck behind manual processes that they find time consuming and error prone and not necessarily scalable. And so when something unexpected happens, something like the events of 2020, or maybe currently you're looking at shipping and how inflation may be affecting things as we kind of move to a new normal market. There's a lot of reason for users to need to very quickly understand what's happening with their business and not be stuck waiting a couple months to get reports to find out what to do. People want the information as quick as possible so they can act quickly in an ever-changing market. And so Jet has been uniquely suited for this in the dynamic space for over 20 years now. Really all Jet has focused on since we began was making sure users are able to get information out of their Dynamics ERP and into a position where they can utilize that, get that in the hands of users, and take that data and use it to drive better business decisions. We have over 14,000 customers in Dynamics and customized solutions specifically tailored to each of the Dynamics systems. So whether you're on Business Central, on Nav, GP, even older systems like SL. Jet is able to support those, has custom solutions tailored to make it easier to use that data. And at the end of the day, that's what we're dedicated to. And so if we're asking about why customers invest in Jet products, and I say this because if we look at these are all different ways you can drive ROI and improve the performance of your organization. Typically, when we talk to folks and understand why they're looking for better reporting, perhaps more sophisticated analytics, it's usually around one of these drivers. So today, we're really going to be focused on how we can improve working capital management, how we can optimize cash flows, and really the focus is about putting your company in a position of financial strength where you can navigate change decisively, whether that's about mitigating risk or seizing opportunities. And the message was pretty clear from our customers this past year is that we need more comprehensive reporting around this. We need to be able to actively manage this as our business moves through the current economic climate. And so we're kind of going to look at these reports really focused around 4 main levers that we can use to reduce critical business risk. First off, tighten your cash flow management discipline. And this is a lot of what we'll be looking at later on as we work through this. We'll look at some key metrics. But in essence, it's a lot about managing how you can align your receivables and payables to make sure what you're sending out is proportional to what you're bringing in over a given period of time. We'll look at how we can reduce working capital requirements. There's a lot of key ways we can optimize this, whether it's minimizing inventory, liquidating redundant inventory, or even other processes around optimizing utilization and tracking, drop shipping, or even things like maybe we're going to start billing work in progress as frequently as possible so things don't get hung up. And then we'll also look at how can you bolster your cash position. Are there ways, is there funding we can apply for? Or do we have non-essential assets that could be liquidated? Do we need to increase credit lines when possible? Bring more in. And then last kind of idea around this would be, are there short-term revenue opportunities that we can identify? Looking at your existing customer base, understanding who your priority customers are, which ones need focus and attention, how you can incentivize customer referrals to drive further business. And the answers to a lot of these questions, a lot of these use cases, they aren't terribly complex, subjects, but you want to make sure you have the data set up correctly so you can actually identify what is going on with your business, which of these levers are most important for us to be looking at when we're trying to set ourselves up for future success. And so I kind of mentioned we have some reports ready to go out of the box. Let's kind of look through that, and as we do, understand what Jet Reports is at the end of the day. It's a self-service reporting tool. The whole design behind it is that you're able to pull data from any table, field, or view within your ERP. You're able to design those reports directly inside of Excel. So that way you can tie in any kind of formulas, if you want to build in calculations, charts and graphs, conditional formatting, any kind of functionality to help communicate this data to your users, not just extract data, but drive those actual KPIs and metrics that users are utilizing to drive their business decisions. And do so in a way that empowers finance teams where they can design these reports on their own. They don't have to rely on IT, and they can do so quickly and efficiently, getting these in the hands of users so they can make decisions in real time and navigate any changes, unexpected circumstances that they may encounter. And so to start, we have a few of these pulled up. Let's jump into some of these pre-built reports we have right out of the box. You'll see that these are mostly built off of Business Central and Nav data, but we also have some that are built on analytics project where we have a data warehouse and cubes with a lot of the mapping already built out as well, which we'll be spending a little more time at later in the session here today. But first off, this is one of our pre-built cash flow reports available right out of the box. This was something we developed last year. As you can imagine, there was a lot of interest in seeing more nimble cash flow reporting. So the whole idea with these pre-built reports is you can open these up. As a user, you can refresh these reports anytime you need to. If that means you want to choose some report options, let users slice and dice the data a little bit, that's available to those users as well. So maybe we want to look at cash flows from a certain date. Maybe we want to look back rather than last 8 weeks, we're actually wanting to look back the whole last quarter. And forgive the date here for being in the future. This is a database that has some of the dates pushed forward a little bit here. But in essence, this is historical detail. And you see when we run this, the data updates, we see our chart and graphs populate, the columns extend out to match the information within them. So it's a fairly dynamic report, that you can pull in new sets of data and have quite a bit of Excel functionality that's just going to tie in seamlessly with those. So you can trust that the reports are going to have the look and feel you want. They're going to communicate the data effectively. And the whole idea with these pre-built reports is typically you're going to see, if you jump in design mode, there's basically one column. And it's just all about pointing those accounts to the relevant account numbers on your ERP. And at that point, it's tied to your data. It's ready to go. You can save this report, send it out to users. They can refresh it as needed to get the information and keep a real close watch on where those cash flows are at. Looking over here, we have another example of one of our pre-built reports. We're going to give you a quick snapshot of your working capital as well as where your current ratio sits. As we all know, it's an important metric we want to keep a handle on so we can make sure our business is in good financial health. And once again, these are built with report options, with the whole idea being that we know finance teams, you're going to get asked all the time, can I see this report broken out this way? Can I see it split out across, filtered down to my dimension, maybe my location or department? And so this gives a way where you can allow users to filter on those without having to modify or design or make any changes to the actual report. So they can run it for a given year. If they want to pull in, adjust which accounts they're bringing in this example, they can. But most often we see these options set up so users can pick their dates, maybe filter across dimensions, break things out quickly across different companies. But it can be a really helpful tool in making sure those users can get the data they need when they need it. Especially relevant if you have folks spread out working remote across multiple time zones. Maybe people aren't on the same schedule, so you want to make sure that they can grab that data on demand. We're talking about some of these questions we want to look at, for how we can kind of improve our financial health of our organization. Getting more detailed analytics around what our customers are doing can be really advantageous as well. Understanding, who are our key customers from a pure profit standpoint. The highest priority, which subset of these customers account for the greatest volume of our sales. But then maybe we also want to look at it from a couple different angles. Like if I want to come in here and say, let's actually focus on, margin, understand, who's our highest margin customers, where are we getting the most from those customers? Are those users that we should be trying to develop more, see what we can do to get those customers purchasing more, because clearly what they're focused on is something that produces a great margin for us as an organization. So ways we can analyze the data, view it from a couple different lenses, and really understand where we might be able to drive future revenue by looking at some of this data. Another area that a lot of folks were focusing on last year is inventory. And of course, you'll find all kinds of standard sort of inventory reports, dashboards. If we want to, model what does our current product mix look like? Can we see that broken out by the actual value of those assets? Can we look historically and understand, which product lines accounted for, the most in sitting in inventory, which ones sold the most, and use that data to kind of predict future trends as well. There's all those kinds of standard inventory reports you'd want to see. And then also some other interesting questions like this one that came about, basically, what inventory is just sitting on the shelf collecting dust? Inventory with no activity. So maybe we're trying to understand, hey, can we liquidate some of this? Do we have product lines that are not generating interest, that is just an expense for the organization? And once again, as we were kind of identifying, we have some report options here, so we can slice and dice the data a little bit. Let me just make sure I'm connected to the right system here. And say maybe we want to look back and I want to know what items don't have any activity since 2018. Stuff that's been sitting there for years that's not relevant. Is there information or items that we can just get rid of? And you see here, we can quickly run it, get an insight into maybe product lines that we can reconsider what we want to do with moving forward. And you notice there's other filters as well. Maybe you want to break these out across posting groups. Maybe you have users across different organizations. You want to focus on a specific warehouse or location. Again, these report options are a great way to allow those users to kind of get in and slice and dice that data without having to rely on your finance teams to modify those reports anytime you want to see the data presented a different way. And then, of course, we'll be getting into vendor reporting in a little more detail, looking at our payables as well as our receivables. But again, we're going to have vendor detail ready to go out of the box for you as well. So there's a library of over 100 of these available for Business Central. You'll find a robust library for GP users as well. And for a lot of organizations, it's kind of going to be the first step folks are going to take when it comes to getting their library of reports in place. And if we want to kind of look at, what are those key reports, just kind of recap what we looked at here. These are ones ready to go. We're going to make sure you can see your rolling cash flows. We're going to make sure you can get information around working capital. Receivables and payables aging, of course, that's always important. We haven't seen those yet, but we'll be spending a little more time on that section a little later here. And then again, inventory and vendor analysis, understand where your costs are, and so you can better manage those. And again, Jet has this ready out of the box for you, but beyond that, it's meant to be a tool that you're able to use to design reports on the fly, design reports as the team needs, and not something that you're just going to be stuck using just those sample reports. So I'm going to go ahead and let's jump in and work through a couple examples. I'm just going to go ahead and close a few of these workbooks out, and then we'll go ahead and dive into some new ones. I'll just open up a new workbook here. Let's look at a couple quick examples of how we can use these Jet functions to design some reports from scratch, or maybe even modify these, because at the end of the day, Jet has a wide range of options on how you can design reports. If you want to break out your global dimensions across sheets, across columns, you're able to do so. You can link multiple tables together. So if you have more complex questions that require data spread out across a few places in your ERP, Jet's going to be able to accommodate that as well. And then beyond that, we're also going to give you some tools that make ad hoc reporting a little bit easier for your users, even when it comes to pulling in general ledger detail. This Fast Financials is a great, fast way to get your financial detail brought into the reports. It's pretty aptly named. If you notice here, when I open this up, it's giving us a live view directly into our ERP. So we can see what accounts are available to us. We can see our balance amounts, pull in budget and variance if we want to. And then if I want to get some of this data into the report, like say I'm trying to do a quick P&L, I can go ahead and scroll down through these. We can grab these revenue accounts, drag and drop them into the report. Maybe I also want to grab our cost of goods, go ahead and grab our expense accounts as well, just grab the whole range. And I can just shift click and drag and drop this detail into the report. And then it's actually querying Business Central and bringing back the information live directly out of the ERP and laying it out for me inside of Excel. And when it did that, not only did it lay this out for me in the same format I was looking at before, but it also created automatically some of these report options we've been talking about. So if users want to be able to filter what dates they're pulling from, or maybe you want to be able to allow them to filter by global dimensions, like we want them to, maybe this user just wants to look at medium and small business. They don't do much work with the large organizations, so they can run the report specific to their criteria. And then beyond that, if they want to get into the detail around this, we're going to make sure you have drill down so you can get into your transactional detail, see what kind of transactions make up a given balance. And the drill down has a couple different ways you can be set up. With Business Central and Nav, you can actually have it open up inside of that transaction view inside the ERP, so you can navigate right into it. From there, you can move to view your invoices, look for any other supporting documentation you were looking for. But it also can open up in this grid view right inside of Excel. And we see here, it's just grabbing all the journal entries tied to that balance, as well as all the metadata associated with those. And you can organize this. If we want to break this out across those customer groups, I can pull this up and you see that, again, we filtered this for small and medium-sized organizations. So that's all we're seeing within our drill down detail. We can also filter on this data, do some additional organization of it right here within the window. And then you'll also always be able to export it back into Excel if you need to do additional analysis on it. So it can be very helpful in getting a quick snapshot if you're trying to understand what's going on behind a given balance, get into the numbers behind that. And then beyond that, Jet is meant to be a very flexible tool. It's meant to build on a lot of Excel functionality. And that's because at the end of the day, any Jet function that's pulling data out of your ERP, it's going to lay it out for a formula inside of Excel. And it's going to do so in a way that allows us to tie Excel functionality to it and interact with that. So for example, say I wanted to actually break this out month over month. I could set that up real easy. Just break this out. Maybe we want to see, we want to see our last month and we want to see the month before that. So I can just go ahead and plug in some values here real quick. Maybe we also want to do some historical comparisons, like I want to break this out. And I also want to see, year to date for this year. And maybe we also want to see, year to date for the previous year. So we can just get a quick snapshot of how we're comparing. Make sure I get the right date put together. And there we go. So something like that, where you can very quickly modify a report to give you month over month, year to date, whatever kind of ranges you're looking to pull from. You're able to modify these using a lot of Excel functionality to easily break these out. Another technique we see used quite often with Jet to great effect is using replicators to break out your data automatically across rows, across columns, or even across sheets. So maybe we want to go back to this example here we were looking at with our working capital and current ratio. This one's actually just has a wildcard for the company. So it's basically going to say, hey, give us all of our companies consolidated together. But maybe this is something where we want to modify this and actually kind of give us each company individually. That's something I can update pretty quickly because all of these functions that are pulling in the data are cell referencing to identify the company right there. So if I wanted to change this, I built the report with that in mind. I knew I was going to want to break this out across those different companies. So I'm going to just duplicate this sheet. And rather than have a wildcard here, let's go ahead and drop in an NL function. And let's break this out across sheets. So this NL function, it's kind of the Swiss Army knife of the Jet ribbon. You can pull data, filter data as it's coming through, break out any data point across rows, columns, or sheets. You can link multiple tables together. Really a lot of firepower with this solution. Also different ways to filter queries, different ways to join tables if you want to see what's common between two tables, what's present in one table but not in the other. So there's a lot of flexibility with this tool. Here, maybe we just want to say we want to break this out across sheets as we mentioned. So we'll say, let's give a new sheet for each value. The table I'm going to pull from, I'm in my BC data warehouse for this example. So you see my data is a little bit easier organized. I have about 20 or so tables rather than the 100. And so it's a little easier to navigate when I'm working off of the data warehouse here with Jet Analytics. But I can go ahead and select from my company table. And I just want a new field for each company value. I want a new sheet. So I hit OK, run the report, and we should see our consolidated report still show up on the first sheet, but then we should have each individual company broken out on the corresponding sheets. And that exact kind of functionality is something you can apply with Jet Reports or with Jet Analytics. You can use it to break out data across your dimensions, across different segments if you're a GP user. A lot of different options around it. Just to highlight another one of these kind of examples, here's one where we're actually giving you all your global dimensions broken out in every combination you want to. So each subdivision of those different dimensions split out across columns using grouping, so you can kind of get into each facet of your business quickly on the fly here. And so we're just kind of scratching the surface of the report design, but I want to make sure we understood that this is something that you're going to be able to use to design the reports, to have the look and feel you want to have the data you need, and present it in a way that allows your users to quickly analyze what they're looking for and move on with their day, taking that data with them. And so, recapping kind of what we looked through here, it's important to understand, there's a lot of new requirements finance teams are required to execute on, and Jet Analytics and Jet Reports help in a lot of ways around those. Whether it's making sure they have access to real-time data with drill down and a fast reporting cadence, so you're not stuck waiting weeks to get a cash flow when you needed to make a decision days ago. Better ad hoc reporting, quickly being able to ask questions, fetch the data you need, get the resolution on those, and move through your day, not being stuck, not having answers to things. And then also enabling remote workers. We have ways where we can set up automated distribution of these reports. You can sync it together with Outlook, so you have a regular cadence where these reports are hitting those users' inboxes wherever they're located in the organization or across the country, so people can get the information they need when and where they want to. We can even set up reports that trigger based on certain information within the report. Say you have an inventory report that when a certain items hit under a threshold, you want a report to go out and notifying the warehouse manager so they can adapt to that. That's something that can be set up with this as well. But again, the key is really making sure that the data is available to those users and that they can actually utilize it, right? We're putting all this hard work into these ERPs to manage our business processes. Let's make sure we're getting everything we can out of it. And so, we worked through some of these examples, and a lot of you may be thinking, that looks pretty easy, that looks fairly straightforward. Some of you may have more complex data. Maybe you have more complicated calculations and metrics that you need to use to get to that data. That's really where Jet Analytics comes into play. Jet Reports we look at it as being a fantastic solution. If you're just purely focused on your ERP's data, we're going to make sure you can get access to all of it, model it the way you need to. But the average organization has as many as 7 different databases where they're holding information. And so you can imagine, if you have data spread out across a few different places, how complex it can be to bring it all together in a meaningful way and do so quickly. So again, we can keep track of things as our business is changing, as the market is changing. So let's take a look at how we can use analytics to better answer these questions when you have more complex data, or you're beyond the general reporting. You already have a real-time reporting tool, and you're trying to tackle some of those more complex KPIs that you haven't yet been able to truly address. And so we'll kind of walk through this, how we can use a data warehouse in cubes to enable users to quickly access data, enable more users to be able to do ad hoc reporting, and the value of having all that data controlled and governed in one location, so you have one version of the truth across your whole organization. That way you don't have to worry about people bringing different numbers to the table, miscalculating values. You can create one truly controlled, governed model that reflects all of your different business processes and gives you all the calculations and metrics you're looking for on demand. And so this may be a little bit of a review for folks who are already well familiar with BI, but I just want to make sure when we're talking about what goes into a BI implementation process, that we're all on the same page around that. So we typically start with your ERP. As you all know, it's a complex web of tables and fields that all have specific relationships between them. It's not necessarily disorganized, but there are hundreds of tables, sometimes thousands, and they have unique relationships between them. So anyone who's trying to report against that data, using a real-time reporting tool, even a really intuitive Excel-based one like Jet Reports, the burden is still going to be on that end user to know where that data lives and how to effectively bring it together to report against it. These ERPs, they're really focused around managing your business processes, helping those run through the ERP to manage your business. How that data is modeled for reporting is a little bit secondary. So what we can think of with a BI implementation is we're going to take this data and we're going to optimize it for reporting. That means when we bring into the data warehouse, we're organizing the data by subject matter, flattening the table structure so you're not seeing nearly as many tables. Again, hundreds before, maybe down to 20 or so with our data warehouse. And then we're also only bringing in the relevant data. So if there's bad data, if there's old data that's not relevant, we can just bring what matters, what's good. And it also allows us the real important piece here, tying data together across multiple systems. So if you're looking to, if you tracking your customer data and understanding, I want to see which customers sold in Q1 but not Q2. If you're invoicing and how you manage all those actual orders is one system, and then the customer detail is in another, you're going to have to tie that all together to answer that question. And rather than doing so in every single report, limiting the amount of users who can actually utilize that data, we model it all in the data warehouse. So when people go to fetch the information they're looking for, it's automatically pulling from all those different systems and combining them in a meaningful way for your organization. And that's the foundation of this. It's where a lot of BI tools they'll just focus on. We also want to make sure you can use the data in as intuitive way as possible. So we add in cubes. These give you dimensionality, and they give you everything pre-calculated in every combination possible. So we'll be looking at a couple key metrics that we want to track. This is a way where you can have those automatically calculated in the back end. So that way, anytime users are fetching that data, they're going to get the same values calculated the same way. And so you can trust everyone's working with the same information across your whole organization. And so let's look at how we can apply this to a couple other facets of the business. And let's look at payables and receivables in a little more detail here. Since we're talking about cash flow management, one of the most effective ways that we can do this is by balancing our payables with our receivables. Trying to understand, hey, are we collecting receivables as quickly as possible? The key metric here that we'd want to track would be days sales outstanding, right? And are we able to pay suppliers predictably, but not necessarily quickly? Is there a way where we can stay on good terms with them, but stretch those out a little bit so that way we're not putting out money faster than we're taking it in? And again, the key metric here we'll be looking at is days payables outstanding. And really the goal behind this is that if you can align those, the receivables and payables, as best as possible, that can help ensure you have a positive cash flow. And we'll look at some strategies around this. You could increase billing frequency, you could discount for early payment, maybe tighten credit requirements for new customers. There's ways we can approach this, but let's first focus on how we can actually get to the detail. With analytics, I can just go ahead and connect to the cubes. Say maybe I'm trying to pull in a quick receivables aging report. I want to get a quick snapshot of my different customers. I want to understand, what kind of a billing cadence are we using with those? Who's behind on payment? So with analytics, I'll just hop into the cubes for this. I'll go to my receivables cube, and when you see this open up, you notice we're no longer looking at tables and fields. So what we're looking at with cubes are measures and dimensions. So measures are going to be your numerical values. You can see we have the amount in the local currency. We have credit and debit amounts. We have that metric, our days sales outstanding that we want to track. And we could even break it out, in the transaction currency and the local currency. So if you have a business that's international, that you have multiple currencies to account for, it's just another area where we can just build all that logic into the back end so end users don't have to worry about, getting that up to date or making sure they're calculated correctly. It's structured in the back end. So the measures are the numerical values, and then the dimensions would just be anything that gives relevance and meaning to those numbers. So it could be talking about how we want to split those out across our aging buckets. how we break out those customers across posting groups, broken out by salespeople. Maybe you want to split these out across different companies or locations. Your global dimensions are going to be brought in. So again, anything that you would tie to those numbers to give meaning to those. And so something like building a quick AR aging report becomes a pretty simple matter with this. We can just start checking some of the boxes we want, so we can grab them out in the local currency. We can break it out across our aging buckets. Let's go ahead and drop these in. We'll get our customers broken out by our customer posting groups. So if we want to split out our EU and North America markets, maybe we want to add some slicers to this. Maybe we want to break this out by company, be able to break it out by currency as well, so we can understand what currency are these transactions occurring in. And then maybe we also want to put in a filter if we want to just include open or unclosed. And something like this, that's actually as quick as I had to, quick as it took to model this data, bring it into the report. This is one of our pre-built reports, but you can see here, it doesn't take long to put that information together if I wanted to be able to break these out, slice and dice the data, split those out across companies or currencies. And then if we wanted to take that one step further, where I was talking about, well, how do we manage our cash flows and compare days sales outstanding, days payables outstanding, is you can join this data together. So here's one that I worked on a little bit with our solutions engineer, Matthew, where we basically wanted to say, let's get us all of our customer detail from our receivables cube, let's get our vendor detail from our payables cube, and let's stack those up and get a side-by-side comparison so we can understand where those different metrics are, where our days sales outstanding is, where our days payables outstanding. And then beyond that, we can start to dive into this. We will look at quarter by quarter, year over year. If we want to start diving into particular vendors to try to understand, what was this vendor? What does their payment cycle look like? Is there something we can do about that? Are these the guys who are dragging down the average? We have the ability to easily sift through the data in real time and compare those across, those different data sets. And, the whole idea behind this could be data across 2 or 3 different systems, 3 or 4 different systems. And no matter how complex that data is behind the scenes, for these end users, it's still going to be just as simple as working with those measures and dimensions, those real world outputs they're looking for, and understanding, what do I want to see? How do I want to lay it out? What am I trying to compare it to? And you can get things like this put together in very short order on the fly. Another element that we see a lot of folks looking to when they're trying to look into a BI solution or answer more complicated questions is, can we use data visualization tools? Will these better enable us to do trend analysis? Will this help more users interact with the data? Something that kind of lowers the barrier to entry of folks to start doing some analysis rather than having to pour over spreadsheets. A lot of folks may find a dashboard to be a more intuitive approach. And so Jet Analytics and the cubes, they definitely enable that. If we want to jump in to Power BI, which is a fantastic BI front-end tool, if you've ever seen this direct off the database, you'd connect to SQL, you'd connect to your instance, your ERP instance, and then you'd have to load the tables you'd want to use, key together any common relationships, essentially load and transform the data before you can start utilizing it inside of the data visualization tool. But we like to think of Power BI as front-end, a BI front-end tool, because what we can do instead is connect Power BI to the cubes. And then you see here it populates those same kind of measures and dimensions we were talking about and lays it out for you in Power BI. So when you want to build visuals like this, value change over a period of time, you can see it's a simple matter of picking what visual you want, tying it to a measure, and tying it to a dimension. And then you can put dashboards together in very short order, give users a more graphical way to interact with the data. For a lot of folks, people are going to find this a lot more intuitive than poring over a spreadsheet, because we as people are very good at visual pattern recognition. Want to look over here, we have a finance cube ready to go as well. Your different amounts and balances, budget details, different GL levels. And again, putting dashboards together and visualizations around this is really just as simple as picking the visual you want, tying it to a measure, tying it to a dimension, in this case, the added layer of the GL level. So data visualization tools can be greatly enabled by the cubes. Let's take a look at one quick example from the top before we wrap up here. So I'll go ahead to analysis services if I want to access the cubes rather than going direct to the database. I'll just go ahead and connect to my local host. And you see here, brings us into this view where we have our different cubes. If I wanted to look at our BC and NAV cubes, like say maybe I want to put some sales data together, I can just select that cube. And you see here, loads up right inside of Power BI, very similar to how I was just working with it inside of Excel. And so something like this, maybe I want to put a sales dashboard together where I can kind of break these out by different customers or by different items, see which salespeople are responsible for what. I can start putting this together very easily. You know, I can go ahead and grab my pie chart. Maybe we want to see our sales broken out by a salesperson. So I'll just go ahead and select that measure, that dimension. We can do the same thing for our item categories. We'll grab the sales amount, go ahead and drop down. Let's pull in our item categories. Expand that a little bit. Maybe we want to look at this over a period of time. So we want to be able to, do some sort of trend analysis. Maybe we want to look at this on a monthly as well as a quarterly basis, trying to identify, is there a certain seasonal cadence to this industry? Are there different products that seem to sell more at different times? And then actually, let's do something more fun than a pie chart. Power BI lets us do some really fun stuff. Like if we want to overlay on this map, we can break out our customers by profit. And we can just go ahead and drop them right into here. And so you can see how in just very short order, just a few clicks, just a matter of minutes, we have a dashboard built out. We can start slicing and dicing this. So if we want to dig into individual users' sales geography, we can see, where are these reps selling? What products, what product mix are they selling? If we want to look at these by quarter, we can try to maybe better understand what's accounting for this dip in Q3 that we're seeing, or on the other side where the boost in December is coming from. And so it's a great way to allow users, especially those users who may not be super technical, who don't want to pore over a spreadsheet. It can be a very intuitive way for those users to be able to analyze the data, make sense of it, and use it to drive decisions for their organization and do so in a fast and meaningful way. And so, we kind of walk through this model, understand here at the end of the day, as you saw, we can connect to a wide range of different tools to utilize this data, whether it's Jet inside Excel, data visualization tools like Power BI. But however you access the data, the value is in that data model and how we're able to pull data across multiple systems that have disparate data structures and tie it all together, allowing users to have the calculations they need, the data they're looking for, and to be able to access it in the most intuitive way possible. So you can enable more than just your finance team to report against it. You can have your operations groups, your sales teams, your all these different groups able to access the data because it's presented in sort of a plain English format, and it becomes much more intuitive for those users to grab what they're looking for. Beyond that, you can trust that when they're grabbing that data, when they're doing ad hoc analysis, it's going to be calculated the way you want it to, ensuring that people are working with correct data that's meaningful, and that you're never going to have to back up and understand, well, how did you get those numbers? What happened here? And have to correct any assumptions people may have made around it. So very powerful way to harness your data and really use it to drive better decisions across all of your different sources of data. And so hope you found this informative and beneficial, kind of walking through the JET products in a little detail, looking at how we can use them to better answer some of these questions around how we manage working capital, how we can better improve our cash flow management. I know there's going to be a little bit of time for questions here. And then I also just wanted to remind folks, we are in the midst of our Q2 promo, where organizations are going to be able to get 25% off Jet Ports and Jet Analytics Foundation packages, as well as upgrades to Jet Analytics. And these are good on perpetual and annual subscription licenses. If you are on monthly subscription currently, no worries, you do have the option to jump to annual at any time and take advantage of these rates. And that 40% off additional designers, viewers, and connectors, that applies for existing customers as well. So if you've been looking to get more users involved with Jet, or maybe there's another system you've been looking to pull data in, now's a great time to add those additional components as well. And we have until June 23rd, so it's coming up, but there is still a little time on this if you're interested. And at that point, we can open it up if there's any questions. If anyone has, we have a question box open, ready to answer those. And if not, looks like we'll be able to give just a few minutes of time back here, but I'll pause and see if any questions come through.
Thanks, Aaron. No questions have come through. As Aaron said, if you have any, please go ahead and type those in so we can get those addressed. I'll give you a few moments and kind of start wrapping up. We do have a few more webinars coming up. This afternoon, we have Mitzi Ridley presenting on BC Intercompany and Consolidations, the good, the bad, and the benefits. And on Thursday, we have two more of our very own, Mary Malone and Gary Harpenow, presenting on planning for BC NAV success, strategies and tactics for engagement and training. So check out our website for more of our upcoming events, and that's inovia.com/events. And we do have a new round of training workshops for you and your team members to attend. Visit our training workshop page at inovia.com/workshops for more information and to register for the training workshop that fits your role. All right, Aaron, I don't think we have, oh, we do have a question, just came through. I spoke too soon. How do I get more JET training for my team?
Yeah, and so great question. There's a handful of different training options. I'd always suggest starting with a conversation with your rep at Inovia. Inovia does have a full JET practice, so a lot of times we find they're the best to work with as they have an understanding of your data and they can work with you on it. Beyond that, JET does have, we have our own structured training we provide as well. Right now, we're offering instructor-led webinar training with a live instructor that goes over best practices and methodologies for report design. And I am expecting us to resume our in-person report writing workshops at some point in the near future here. And again, start with your Inovia rep, but I'm also able to help coordinate training and questions on our side as well.
All right, great. If anybody has any additional questions, feel free to type them in, or you can contact Aaron at Jet Global. He's got his information up there on the screen, or you are more than welcome to contact your account manager here at Inovia Consulting. So I just want to thank everyone for joining us today on this webinar, or if you're watching on demand, we thank you for taking some time out. Thank you, Aaron, for presenting. It was very well informative.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
All right. And we do have a podcast going on. If you have not heard of it already, it's called the Inovia Conversation. And we just want to encourage you to listen to the selection that our hosts, Steve Waltz and Jeff Progolski, have provided to us. You can learn more about the different podcast platforms to listen to on our podcast page, and that's inovia.com/podcast. So check out that selection and subscribe so you'll get notified when those new episodes air. All right, everyone, thank you again for joining us. Thank you, Erin, for presenting, and we look forward to seeing you soon on another Anovia webinar. Take care, everyone.